Good afternoon and good morning, rather, and welcome to this edition of Market Watch. I'm Rahul Arora on the day from Wipro, heading across to Biocon, where sales were up 33%. Kiran Mazumdar show with the press conference.
Really about our generics and biosimilars, which is about our immunosuppressants, which is about our growth and increasing focus on emerging markets, our research services, and of course, later on, I think we will be able to unlock huge potential and value in our novel programs. So I think overall, I think we are very pleased to see this traction being maintained and sustained, because we've seen this traction beginning to appear earlier this year, and you can see that we ended last fiscal on a very, very strong note, and we are starting this fiscal again on a very strong note.
How are margins panned out?
Well, margins have been maintained. I mean, you're seeing 21% margins, which really is at the same levels as what you saw last fiscal. When you include and exclude Axicorp, of course, the margins look very different. The margins without Axicorp are at that 30% levels, but with the Axicorp, it of course drops to 21%, but it has to be looked at it in context, because Axicorp, as you know, is a top-line business, but even Axicorp has seen some interesting improvements in margin. But I think overall we are very, very pleased with the business.
What about your forex loss pressures? How is that looking?
Forex, I think, is something that we need to look at on an annualized basis. I think, you will see an up one quarter, down one quarter. It's all about tracking the movement of the rupee against the dollar. But we have actually hedged most of our important exposures, and I don't think you're going to see much of an impact on an annualized basis.
How have the contract research revenues panned out, and what kind of increase are you seeing there this quarter?
Well, you can see that our research services business also have increased on a year-on-year basis. I mean, on a total level, we have seen this business increase by 15%. Syngene's business has increased at a top line much stronger. It's about 25%. But I think we are building this research services business. We are trying to get into new business offerings, which initially will have an impact on its profits. But I think overall, long term, this is going to deliver very high value for us. Again, at Clinigene, we are seeing a change of leadership there. We are also trying to make sure that Clinigene does not become a commoditized business, because I think the clinical services business can become a very commoditized business. Again, we are trying to refocus our strategies there to make sure that we continue to really focus on high value services rather than just commodity services. So you may not see a huge impact in terms of top line growth, but certainly we want to make sure that our bottom line from these kind of businesses will increase.
And talking about Axicorp, you did mention very briefly. Could you give us an update on how's that panning out?
I think, Axicorp as a business, as you know, will only start improving in terms of its earnings potential once we roll out our insulins into the European market. And there again, I'm very pleased to share with you that we have received the regulatory approval from the European German authorities to start phase 3 clinical trials for registration purposes. So that's a very big development for us, and we expect to start patient enrollment very, very soon. So once this happens, I think, we actually are now on the right path and right track to gain market entry into Europe, which is really a very, very important milestone for us. So I think this is a very important piece of news that I have to share with you this quarter.
How soon would that happen, and when do you think that will start reflecting in the revenues?
Well, we are not likely to get market authorization for Europe, until 2012. So the earliest you can see us getting into the European market would be somewhat at the end of 2012, early 2013. And, really the sort of significant sales contribution should not be expected till fiscal year to 2014. That's really the kind of time frame that you need to look at in terms of looking at this business.
Could you also give us an update as far as your oral insulin launch goes?
Yeah. Oral insulin, as you know, the phase 3 pivotal proof of concept studies are, in terms of patient, the clinical trials part of it should be completed in another quarter. Then there comes a data lock, because as you know, this is a blinded trial. So by the, towards the latter half of this year, we should be able to start talking about that set of data. But in continuation with our IND filings, we have actually got permission to start a clinical trial for type 1 diabetics. Now that's also a very, very important development. So,
Okay, that's Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, the Chairman and Managing Director at Biocon, addressing the press conference. Stock is down 2%, Wipro is up 2%.
Dhaval, the other results I wanted to talk to you about are Biocon numbers. Now we heard Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw talking about the factors that led to those numbers. You've had a chance to study them now for a bit. What are you making of those?
Well, Biocon has been a very interesting case because the company came out with a good set of numbers. They saw a 33% top line growth, and all of that 33% growth on the top line actually translated into the bottom line or the profit. That means that they maintained their margins. Now this is very interesting considering the fact that the company actually saw a 800 basis points increase in the cost of raw materials. So having said that, the company has been able to maintain the margin growth, and that is the largest positive for the company. Besides that, of course, cost control has been one of its largest positive factors. Going ahead, people will of course be looking at how does the German subsidiary, that is Axicorp, shape up, and of course with a recovery that the management is seeing in the CRAM segment, that is another segment to look forward to as far as Biocon is concerned. But all in all, quite an interesting and good set of numbers from Biocon there.
All right, Dhaval, many thanks indeed. So earnings making the news so far this morning. The overall market seemed to have given up some of their gains from early Chennai. We'll go back to looking at Biocon now. Dhaval Parekh is again with us trying to dissect those numbers that have come in from the company this morning. Dhaval?
Well, thank you so much. Biocon came out with its numbers, and a very interesting set of numbers, because here you have seen a company which has achieved a top line growth of 33%, and that top line growth has come, that 33% growth has also come in the bottom line also, or the profits. Now joining us for further perspective on these numbers is Ms. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw from the company. Ma'am, if you can walk us through the numbers and explain to us how you could translate this 33% growth in your top line into your bottom line.
Sure. I think, what is very important for me to highlight here is the fact that our top line and bottom line have both grown by 33%. And I think this is about product mix really that has given us this kind of very robust, strong set of earnings this quarter. We have seen some good traction in some of our new, sort of focused businesses. The immunosuppressants have been a strong contributor of the top line, bottom line growth. Some of our licensing revenues also have kicked in to make these numbers look strong. And apart from that, our insulins and our healthcare, the branded formulations business, has also been responsible for, delivering a good set of numbers this quarter.
Right, ma'am. But while your immunosuppressants business is doing well, for someone who's looking at your company, your CRAMS business has essentially been growing a good 20 to 25% over the last few years. But the last 2 quarters, as in the research segment, there has been a little bit of pressure because it's been growing about 12 to 13%. So is there a little bit of a pressure that you're feeling in the CRAMS business?
Well, it's not a CRAM business per se. Our business is a very research services business. It's not really a CRAM business. But that business is, there are 2 challenges there. We don't want to be in the commodity space. Now, you can show top line growth, but, that's not going to be, reflected in a commensurate bottom line growth. So I think what we are trying to do is to really focus on some high value services, and that obviously requires some initial investments to make sure that you actually, take advantage of those kind of high value, high margin services. So I think that's where the temporary pressure is. But I think in the quarters ahead, you're going to see some good pickup and, good reflection on bottom line growth as well.
All right, and ma'am, also going ahead now, if I just for the benefit of our viewers, if you can explain as to how will AxiCorp do and how will the base business do? If you can just give us an idea as to what do you expect on each of these businesses?
Well, AxiCorp actually has grown very strongly this quarter as well, and AxiCorp has continued to kind of support both at the top line and at the bottom line. So I think AxiCorp as a business has done pretty well. In fact, it continues to gain visibility in Germany in the pharma space. It's already ranked as the 29th company in the pharma space. It is one of the fastest growing pharma companies in Germany. So in terms of its existing business, obviously it's done very well to sustain its margins and its top line growth. We've invested in AxiCorp because of our own interest and our own aspirations of gaining a European footprint with our biosimilar insulins. And we are on track. In fact, we've received a European approval to conduct phase 3 clinical trials for our human insulin, and we are expecting to commence patient enrollment very soon. This is a very important milestone because we are the first Indian company to advance our biosimilar program to such an extent. And this will allow us then to get into the German market, hopefully by the end of 2012 or early 2013. And that's when you will see then AxiCorp's margins increasing and it becoming a bottom line driven business rather than just a top line driven business.
Well, ma'am, then that brings me to the most important question that investors and analysts as well as the markets have been waiting for, and that is on the human insulin space. What has been the development, and if any timeline that you can provide to us as to when could we see the launch of the product?
Well, oral insulin is what you're referring to, and I think that is a program that is making steady progress. We have also started or about to start another clinical trial for type 1 diabetes. As you know, the earlier trial is ongoing for type 2 diabetes. This is a type 1 diabetes trial, and that too, this is being done under the US IND that we filed in December last year. So this is a very important development. In terms of launch, it's very difficult for me to forecast when that will be because this is a program that will be globally partnered, and it will very much depend on the global partner and their marketing strategies. So I don't think I can really comment on when this product could enter even the Indian market, which really would be the sort of first market to look at.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us with that perspective on your numbers. That was Kiran Mazumdar, the CMD at Biocon, walking us through her numbers. She pointed out two very important aspects to us. That firstly, that as far as her research business is concerned, the company is specifically looking at large contracts which helps them to maintain the margins. And secondly, is that it is looking for strong growth from its German subsidiary, AxiCorp. Now, it is very important to show over here that the company has been able to maintain margins despite a huge increase in raw material costs, and that is something that the management seems to be very focused towards.
Dhaval, many thanks indeed. So Biocon, they're talking about their results that have just been announced, but it's also now time to look beyond these big headlines.
And unfortunately, we have to take a little break right now, but there's a lot more to come on Small Wonder. Remember, we're still looking at a lot of those companies with high growth value. Bharat Gears is them. We'll speak with the management right after this.